It's really a very simple election when you think about it. All this election is about is, do you want to roll with somebody whose track record overwhelmingly suggests they're not up for the job, but who might give you the vibes and might have the media eating out of her hand as if she's Barack Obama 2.0. And then there's the other option. And the other option is, don't really like the guy, might rub a lot of people the wrong way, but he did do the job pretty well for 4 years, and yeah, there's some baggage and some nonsense that goes along with it, but I at least know the person is competent enough to hire the right people who are going to do a solid job on behalf of the United States of America. I watched the Kamala Harris speech last night, and thank goodness this week is over. I can't be staying up till 10:30 and then staring up at the ceiling because my adrenaline is going a mile a minute, getting all ticked off by this stuff. I can't deal with it, Mark.
At least she went on at 9:30.
Well, you are right. That is an excellent point. There was a part of me last night, I was starting to fall asleep at about 9 o'clock. And I was watching CNN because I wanted to watch one of the networks that, was kind of more favorable towards her. And they announced at about 9:10, they said, hey, Kamala will be taking the stage in the 9 o'clock local time hour. And I was like, yes, woo! Yes. Oh, I was so fired up. And Kamala, to her credit, did keep her speech 37 minutes. That's about an hour shorter than Trump's. So I give her that much. But then I'm watching the speech and I'm looking at my clock and I'm like, all right, we're 5 minutes in. And she's kind of telling her story and kind of, winding the whole thing up because she's trying to introduce herself to America. A lot of people just don't know her, right? So I get it, kind of trying to tell a story and weave it into your personal life history and all this stuff. And that's kind of politics 101 if you're not really all that well known. But I'm 10 minutes in. I'm like, can I get something policy? 15 minutes in, 20 minutes in, 25. Can I get some policy? Can I get some policy, please? And the answer was no. The speech had the vibes. I'll give her that. And because she kept it to about 37 minutes, she was able to keep up that enthusiasm for most of the speech. So credit where it's due on that front. But then when you look under the hood, you say, okay, what was really there? And what was there was somebody who's been in power for the last 3.5 years, who doesn't really want you to look at her as somebody who's been in power for the last 3.5 years. And then also really went on to say, by the way, that guy Trump, we can't put him back in power. That's really what it was. It was we don't want to go back. We don't want to go to Donald Trump. And there's no doubt that that will appeal to a segment of the population. It will. But then if the answer is you, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to fix the incredible problems this country has? Which, by the way, you have been in office for 3.5 years and apparently have not done anything about. That is the question that I think American voters need to be asking themselves, especially if they come off of that high from last night where Kamala did have the vibes, as they like to say. But Donald Trump said as much after the event last night. He went on Fox, he went on Newsmax, and he's asked the very obvious question.
Well, she lies, and she's not specific, and it was a very general, it was like just a general speech. But I ask one question, why didn't she do it before? In fact, she's got 5 months left. Why doesn't she leave the beautiful studio or wherever she is right now, hop on a plane, go down to Washington, D.C., and close the border? Because she can close the border very easily. You know that. I didn't have a bill. I didn't ask for a bill. I closed the border.
That's what Donald Trump said last night. And he's absolutely right to point that out. If Trump stays on message, if Trump stays on point, if Trump stays disciplined, he's going to win in November. He is. Kamala Harris is running a wholly unserious campaign that is not based in anything from a policy perspective. Now, that'll work for about 40 to 45% of Americans who don't really care and or just despise Donald Trump to the point that it doesn't matter. I mean, she has been the nominee now for a month, has not done a single interview. Maybe one will come before Labor Day, but I don't even know anymore. I really don't. It will be a coin flip. The question is, can Donald Trump stay on message to the point where he just keeps saying exactly what he said last night in those comments? Here's my track record. Here's her track record with Joe Biden. What are her plans? He's got a chance coming up in a couple of weeks at the debate to obviously do that, to bring that up, to make that part of the conversation, and he needs to do it. He has to be on point. Because you saw it last night. I mean, the media was obviously doing its thing on behalf of Kamala Harris. There is an attempt here to make her into Obama 2.0. And by the way, she basically was ripping off Obama's greatest hits.
There are people of various political views watching tonight. And I want you to know, I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country above party and self, to hold sacred America's fundamental principles, from the rule of law to free and fair elections to the peaceful transfer of power.
What possibly has Kamala Harris done during her time in the U.S. Senate when she was voted the most liberal senator in the United States Senate based on her track record to her time working for Joe Biden in this White House, where they directly attacked their political enemies? What is there to suggest that she would be a president for all Americans? Now, I'm not sitting here and saying Donald Trump will be the great unifier. I think he could be if he wanted to be. It's not clear to me he has really any interest in doing that. And that's a shame, I admit. Now, his policies would work for more Americans, but I mean in terms of being the great unifier, that's unfortunately not who he really is. But what is there at all in Kamala Harris's history that suggests what she just said there is an accurate statement? Give me just one little thing that Kamala Harris has done, has said that would possibly suggest she is interested in being the president for all Americans, regardless of political party. Now, it sounds good. If you don't really pay attention, if you're not locked in all the time, it sounds good. Don't get me wrong. I get it. But then you got to strip down for a second and say to yourself, okay, what are the facts? What has this person actually done? What has she advocated for? What has she believed in? And when you strip out all the vibes, you strip out all the emotions, you strip out all the feels, what you realize and what you get is a complete and utter empty suit. That's what you get. Now, I'm still waiting for Taylor Swift or Beyonce to show up. Whatever happened there? There was supposed to be some massive special guest last night, and the rumor mill was running rampant that it was going to be Taylor Swift. And I'm not going to lie, there was about a half hour last night where I was like, oh no. Oh, I started to buy into it. I kind of got a little too caught up in my own head. And I'm like, don't do it, don't do it. You know, I've been saying for 10 months, I don't think she's going to get involved. But there was a half hour where I was sweating a little bit. Thankfully, I never bet a naked lap on this thing. But I was starting to get just a little bit nervous. So what happened? The rumor mill went wild. Well, there is a report as to why no celebrity showed up last night. Big time celebrity, like superstar celebrity. And we'll tell you what happened next on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio. Speaking of celebrities, Bill O'Reilly will be here at 8 o'clock this morning, so make sure you're tuned in then on 95.7 FM or streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. I'm still waiting on Taylor. I'm still waiting on Beyonce. I'm waiting on somebody. There was George W. Bush rumors running rampant that he was going to show up. I mean, it was everybody and anybody.
Oprah was going to give away cars. You get a car. You
get a car. You get a car. Hey, you get a car. It was crazy. Well, as it turned out, nobody was there. No one. Oh, no, sorry. I got that wrong. CNN explained last night after Kamala Harris's speech how there was a special guest. There was. You see, you just might have missed it. Maybe you turned off your television. Maybe you went to bed. No. There was a special guest. CNN explains here.
In anticipation here and elsewhere that there may be a special guest, I am told by Democrats that Kamala Harris was their guest.
Wait, no, you're kidding me, right? All these rumors about Taylor, Beyonce, George W. Bush, who was it going to be? Wait, Kamala Harris is your special guest? No. Kamala Harris is not a special guest. Kamala Harris was the guest that everybody knew was going to be there. She can't be special. She can't be the surprise.
Can't be the headliner and the opener, right?
No, you can't be everyone to everybody. I mean, she's actually trying to be that, but you can't be everyone to everybody.
That's why they were on time last night, because they were like, oh, everybody's going to be looking at 9:30 for Beyonce.
Well, I do wonder that, and I do have a theory on that there, Mark. So let's continue with CNN's report.
They did not want a celebrity at the end of this convention to essentially compete with her. One senior advisor telling me this is a deadly serious election.
Ooh.
And if you looked at the end of this program, having Leon Panetta come on, the former defense secretary, really presenting Vice President Harris as a plausible commander-in-chief, that is one of the reasons I'm told that there was not a celebrity performance at the end.
Yeah, I don't believe that for a second. Do you? I don't. You're telling me that Kamala Harris would not have broken out Taylor Swift at the end of that campaign or end of that evening if she could have? Come on now. Yeah, Taylor wants to come in. No, we don't want her. Yeah, okay, sure. I believe that. Hey, Beyonce wants to. No, I'm the star tonight. What a bunch of nonsense. Bunch of absolute nonsense. I have felt for a long time that Taylor Swift will not get involved in this election. I don't think it benefits her one bit. And I think that her ego is at the point where she's realizing, you know what? I'm not here to carry politicians' water. That's not my role. I'm a billionaire musician. And while she certainly is probably more likely to vote, much more likely to vote for Kamala Harris than Donald Trump, I don't think she wants to be the face of the campaign. And nor should she want to be the face of the campaign. There's no benefit to her or, frankly, anyone of her fame and fortune in doing that right now. Just no benefit. So am I buying that explanation from CNN? Not for a second. But it's amazing how these things just take off. Because all this started last night on social media. It was like late afternoon when an account on X that is called Angry Staffer. No one knows who this person is. It's a faceless account. And this person got 16 million views on their X post when they posted, I've been sworn to secrecy, but you don't want to miss the DNC tonight. If you thought Oprah was a big surprise, just wait. That led 20 minutes later to other random blue checkmark accounts with over 100,000 followers describing a gap in tonight's DNC schedule for a special guest. That got 22 million views. 3 hours later, at about 3:30 our time, White House political director Emmy Ruiz tweeted a bee emoji. What did people make of that? Well, obviously, that seemed to confirm rumors of Beyonce. Well, she later recanted and said her 6-year-old accidentally tweeted out the bee. The dog ate my homework. Oh, yeah. Yep. Just so happened that your 6-year-old opened up your X and tweeted out a bee emoji. What are the odds on the day that rumors are flying around that Beyonce may show up? So then what happens? Ruiz ends up deleting that post on X. A few hours later at 6:49 Central Time, TMZ falsely reported that Beyonce would be performing at the DNC. And that was that. Now, TMZ is usually pretty good.
I was just going to, as much as I don't watch it, I will give them credit for being right there.
I know.
You know? So.
That's what's weird.
That one underscores it for me as much as anything here.
That what?
TMZ reported.
Yeah, I know. That's
right?
where, I mean, they're not usually wrong about this stuff.
No.
So
it's not.
So
the,
what do we think
National
happened?
Enquirer.
Something happened then? Something went wrong for Beyonce? Something went haywire? What do you think happened then?
Oh, this is all news to me at the moment, right? So I don't have any particular speculation, but
Well, TMZ's not usually wrong.
no, that's the thing
So-
where I'm like, there's more to this somewhere.
Something happened, and I don't know what it was. But the notion that Kamala Harris and her campaign don't want Beyonce, don't want Taylor Swift, come on now. Please. Are you kidding me? It's all they've got. They don't have policy. They don't have plans. They just have vibes and celebrities and the media carrying their water, saying Orange Man bad. I mean, literally, they need people like Beyonce. It worked for Obama. It didn't work for Hillary. It worked for Obama. Worked a little bit for Biden. I mean, these are the people they rely on in large part to help get them across the finish line. So I don't know what happened last night. I don't know what went wrong last night. But I'll tell you right now, a part of me wonders this. A part of me wonders if these rumors were planted by Kamala Harris's people and Democrats. And the purpose of planting them is to get as many people to the television at about 9:30 last night as they possibly could, waiting for this potential surprise guest, and basically requiring people to sit through the entire speech, seeing if Taylor Swift or Beyonce was going to walk out on stage after the fact. And if that is what happened, that's actually brilliant. That's 3D chess right there. You get young people to the television, they watch the speech, they get all the good feels, they get all the good vibes. They don't care about the fact that she's been in office for 3.5 years and they're fired up to vote. And by the way, I guess those rumors aren't actually true. But they get people to their television sets and they get them fired up for the election. Maybe there is some 3D chess going on. That's entirely possible. And it's one of those things that as I look at it from afar, if that's what they pulled off, then that's brilliant. But maybe that's not what it is. Maybe it was just an internet rumor that ran wild. I have no idea. But I believe that you're going to see very big numbers for that speech last night from Kamala Harris. And to her credit, she at least stayed on the script and kept it under an hour and a half. Coming up, J.D. Vance was in town last night. Our Jackson County legislator, Sean Smith, was there. How did J.D. do? He'll give you the inside scoop on how that went next. Well, last night, it wasn't just DNC night. J.D. Vance was here in Kansas City. He did a fundraiser on the Kansas side of the state line with U.S. Senator Roger Marshall, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and there were about 100 people in attendance there last night. We're happy to welcome on a guy who was at the events, Jackson County legislator and congressional candidate against Emmanuel Cleaver in Missouri's 5th District. Sean Smith is joining us on KCMO. Sean, good morning. Thanks for being here. And take me through last night. How was the event?
Yeah, Pete, it was great. I will say that I hadn't been to something quite like that before. A little bit of entertainment, 2 young men, kids really, reciting Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. I can't explain it, why it was so compelling, but it just was compelling to me because they were so impassioned about it. And then JD, really it was a chance to really hear his story kind of firsthand in a relatively small group setting. He talked about one thing that was really impactful to me. He talked about the idea that if the drugs that we had today had existed 15 years ago, that his mother probably would have never woken up from the overdose that she, experienced. So I just think, it just put emphasis on how important it is that we stop the illegal drug trafficking that's happening at our southern border. So,
Geez, I hadn't thought about
real world
that.
stuff.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about
real
that.
world stuff.
But we are certainly hitting, record levels of overdoses or poisonings, largely courtesy of the fentanyl that is coming across the southern border. And yes, there are, millions of Americans dealing with that addiction right now. So how did JD seem in that kind of a smaller setting where he's not trying to rile up a crowd? He's not trying to, poke at reporters. What is he like in an environment like that?
Yeah, he honestly, he just seemed like the guy next door. Very down to earth. not at all. There's handlers around him and people trying to make sure that he, stays on task. But, he just seemed like to be your next door neighbor, frankly. He didn't seem that, aloof or anything. I was really impressed with him.
Mm-hmm. And, listen, he's a young guy. I think he just turned 40 years old here in the last couple of weeks. So does he come off like the moment's too big for him, or does it feel like he's up for it?
Oh, no, he's definitely up for it. And he seemed very, very comfortable. With a smaller crowd, bigger crowd, my impression was he seemed very comfortable, and he just seemed, extremely intelligent. Mm-hmm. I think he's the guy for the job. Sure.
Interesting. Sean Smith is here, Jackson County legislator. He's also running for Congress against Emanuel Cleaver coming up here in November. He will be on your ballot in Missouri's 5th Congressional District. So what about Pompeo, Marshall? Who else spoke, if anybody, last night?
Marshall spoke a little bit. Pompeo spoke a little bit. Honestly, it was pretty straightforward stuff. Marshall, I think, talked, just mainly about introducing Vance and, happy to have everybody there. I don't think either one of them made any announcements that were particularly, noteworthy. I don't think that was the intention of the event. It was really to highlight JD. It
was really to highlight. Okay. Anyone else of note that you care to share with us? Do a little page 6, gossip column for us. Who was there? Who's who?
Well, so I don't know that it's page 6 gossip because he's posted it on Facebook, but Andrew Bailey was there. He and I, because of the property tax stuff, we recognize each other now and walk by with a fist bump. And, and I think I saw a photo where Andrew actually was able to meet JD at the airport. And
yes.
Mark Alford, Mark Alford's a great guy. Loved seeing him there. It's obvious that he's really swung into the role of congressman from being a, news guy. And is really comfortable in that environment now. Mm-hmm. So that's great.
That's great. Well, that's very cool. And it was I did confirm it, not through you, but through somebody else. It was over at Indian Hills Country Club, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah. Very nice.
I think they kept that kind of quiet,
yes.
mainly just to, not have a bunch of disruption. And after the fact, I don't think that it was intended to be confidential.
No. By now it doesn't really matter, but I understand leading up to the event, they didn't want to, be drawing protesters and all that kind of nonsense going on right now.
And there was one gal there with a sign that was a little protesty, and some members of the club joked with us as we walked in. They said, "Yeah, we wish we could get rid of her." And I said, "Well, it's private property. Can't you ask her to leave?" And they said, "No, she's a member."
Oh, all right.
That was pretty funny.
We found the Karen member at Indian Hills Country Club who was standing there with a sign.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hysterical. Well, by the way, while I've got you, listen, you are running for Congress. We are sitting here now in a general election season, so things are ramping up for you. You had no real primary. As you're going around Missouri's 5th Congressional District, which has been redrawn, it now includes some of the Northland. What are you trying to get across to people, to try to beat Emanuel Cleaver, who has obviously been a stalwart for decades?
Yeah. So, I'm definitely not running down Cleaver. My race is about bringing new energy, and just honestly, Cleaver and I have policy differences. I'm very focused on making sure that we restore, and I'll steal this from J.D. Vance from last night. People used to have Americans used to have a birthright that was public safety. You could feel safe in your home, on the streets, and somehow that's slipped away from us. And, we see it in everyday lives that crime is just impacting everybody. And there are federal policies and local policies that we really need to embrace in order to return us to a place where we really do feel safe in our homes and in our communities. And that's not there these days, and we need to turn that around.
It's certainly not in parts of Kansas City. How do you get, though, people who have voted for Democrats, voted for Emanuel Cleaver for years now? How do you go to them? Where do you find them? Where do you reach them? And how do you convince them, hey, it's time for a change? What does that look like for you the next couple of months?
Yeah, so there's a pretty decent chunk of undecided and independent voters that are not enthusiastic about electing Cleaver to his 10th term and 20th year. And, having him remain in elected office since 1979 is when he started getting a paycheck as a government official, as a city councilman. So there's plenty of people targeting them and making sure that they know that they have a viable option. And I will tell you, the property tax advocacy that I've done, which is still, moving forward, we're going to get resolution for the people who were overtaxed $120 million. I've had Democrats come into GOP headquarters and ask for my sign. And when the staff there asks them if they want anybody else's sign, they say, nope, I'm a Democrat, but I'm voting for Sean. So there's absolutely people out there. How many? It's kind of hard to count, but I will tell you that the latest polling we had showed that we were right in the hunt. So.
Well, that's awesome. You keep hustling. You've been doing great work, obviously, on behalf of the Jackson County taxpayer, and we're grateful for your time, and I will share with the audience something you said to me last night when we were texting. You said that you should have brought me to the event last night, and I said there's no need for that. I definitely would embarrass you, Sean Smith. So, I appreciate you thinking of me, but I didn't want to be dragging you down during that big moment in front of J.D. Vance.
You're our local superstar, buddy. You should have been there and you would have stolen the show from JD, I'm sure.
Well, now you're just greasing me up on a Friday. Hey, we appreciate you, Sean Smith. Thank you, my friend, and we'll talk to you soon. Good luck on the campaign trail.
Thanks, Pete.
All right, Sean Smith, Jackson County legislator, doing great work. And, I put this up on Facebook last night because there were helicopters in the area of Prairie Village and Mission Hills. And it turned out that those were related to J.D. Vance. It was KCMO and the police department there using their helicopters overhead, just, helping out with some security and whatnot. So that's why if you're in the area of Prairie Village and Mission Hills and you had a lot of helicopter activity late afternoon, that's what it was tied to. You had Mike Pompeo, Roger Marshall. The top donation requests were $50,000. So you had some obviously heavy rollers there last night. But someone asked on the Facebook page, Pete Mundo on KCMO, if I was going to be there. And I said, no, I think I'm too much for that crowd. So it worked out fine. But I get the inside scoop from guys like Sean and Alford and all these people who were there. So good stuff. But, yeah, he's coming here. Kansas City raising money. You love to see that. Oh, make it stop. Stop. Oh, my goodness. Good morning, 7:05 on a Friday. It's great to be here on KCMO. Bill O'Reilly's 1 hour away. That's Beyonce, by the way, in case you were wondering. That song is the song that Kamala Harris came on stage to last night. And the song is titled Freedom. And what did I say yesterday? The DNC has been all about freedom. They have staked the ground of freedom. And it is such an absolute farce on so many levels for them to call themselves the Party of Freedom. All week long, you've heard about freedom. Now, what does freedom mean to them? Well, freedom means abortions till term. That's what freedom means, in large part. That's been a big theme throughout the week. What else does freedom mean to them? Well, last night, freedom meant things like freedom from gun violence. So there was a moment last night at the DNC where, and actually it was Quentin Lucas who tweeted about this, and then I started watching it at this point. They had multiple folks up there who had dealt with losing loved ones to gun violence. And they had a black screen, and it said freedom in all caps, and then underneath, from gun violence. And they highlighted 5 women who had lost family members to gun violence. And it was about a 5-minute deal, and here's how it wrapped up.
Our losses do not weaken us. They strengthen our resolve. We will secure safer futures that we all deserve. We will organize. We will advocate. We will run for office.
So that was last night, and Mayor Lucas actually tweeted about this. He said, "Thank you, Kamala Harris, for advocating for the freedoms to be safe from gun violence at our schools, our churches, at our parks, and in our communities." Now, there's quite a bit of irony here where Democrats claim that freedom only comes if you give them more power. you allow them to create more laws and you will be freer. That's basically the argument they're making when it comes to gun control. If you give them more power to enact more laws, you will be freer. You will be safer. You see what a farce that is there, John Anthony?
I think you're giving them power to enact less laws. Got the cashless bail and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, well, more laws that lead to more chaos.
Yeah.
Is what I would say to that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they like to pass laws that lead to more chaos on the streets.
Touche.
And then you end up in a situation where you can't defend yourself. That's their vision for America. And the irony of them sitting in one of the deepest blue cities in the country that has one of the highest crime rates in America, in Chicago, talking about how they're the party of being free from gun violence. Well, hell, if their laws worked when it came to protecting people from gun violence, Chicago would be a utopia. Chicago would be one of the safest places in America, and a place where no one's ever getting shot, no one's ever getting killed. It's a blue state and a deep blue city. And they've got some of the worst gun crime in America. So make that make sense. Do they not look in the mirror for 5 seconds and come to that very obvious conclusion that you would come to and I came to here just thinking about it last night? I'm like, wait, they're in a deep blue city with very strict gun laws in a deep blue state, and the crime is some of the worst in the country when it comes to homicides. And here you have these 5 women who obviously you feel for. I mean, they're human beings. They're Americans. They've lost family to gun violence. But the notion that this will be the party that will protect you from gun violence? And by the way they do it is by enacting more gun laws as they broadcast from a state and a city that has some of the strictest gun laws in America? Just make it make sense. You can't. But hey, when it's been a week of gaslighting, why not give it one more shot on a Thursday night? That was my takeaway last night as I watched this thing play out. But the freedom line is so disingenuous on so many levels. Because when it comes to freedom in their eyes, what freedom means is just giving them more power. Taking away your rights to defend yourself and giving them more power. And what they were trying to tap into was what the Republicans did at the RNC pretty effectively, where they had family members of those who have been impacted by the illegal immigration crisis, right? They had family members of those who lost their lives to illegal immigrants who committed heinous acts, and they had them speak, and it was very powerful. Now, here's the difference. Here's the difference between these two moments when you really think about it. The Republicans are advocating for policies that prevent awful people from doing awful things. Closing the border so people cannot get into this country who are going to commit crimes. It doesn't prevent Americans from committing crimes, but you know what? Here's the difference. An American who commits a crime is at least allowed to be here. Someone who's here illegally committing a crime, that's an avoidable crime because they should not even be in the country. So Democrats are I think they were trying to tap into that moment and use it kind of on their side of the political aisle. But here's the difference. They're not advocating for laws that would prevent bad people from doing bad things. They're not. They're advocating for laws that would simply hamstring and prevent legal citizens who abide by the law from doing things or having things that they have a right to own under the Constitution. Those are two very different visions for America. And if the bad guys abided by their laws and their rules, you would see great examples of that in Chicago. And you don't. In fact, you see the antithesis of this. You see lawlessness and crime and homicides running rampant. Because you can have all the gun laws you want. But when the criminals don't fear anyone or anything, when the criminals know that they can get away with anything because, one, the cops are mostly neutered and don't want anything to do with these thugs on the streets, because guess what? Even if they arrest them and they put their lives on the line, there's a great chance they ain't going to jail. They're not spending a lot of time in prison. when you have the soft on crime policies and then you say gun control will fix everything, all you do is put people who abide by the law-abiding citizens behind the 8 ball. And there's evidence of that everywhere from Chicago to right here in Kansas City. Chicago's a better example because it's a blue city and a blue state. Kansas Cityans, some still get away with this idea of, these Missouri laws are just killing us here. They really are. The state's killing us here. No, you guys got a prosecutor who is a joke, who is an absolute, utter joke. Why do you think the homicide rate in general, in part at least, is so much higher in Jackson than it is in Clay and Platte? Ask yourself why that might be. Think the prosecutor's role has something to do with it? It does. It always does. And that, when I saw the freedom from gun violence last night, that was something where I said to myself, the hypocrisy knows no bounds. I think I told you the story last week that I got invited to the suite next to Taylor's, but I don't, Kate and I are already going to the game against the Ravens, and we've just got, sitting with the regular folks. I like watching football from just seats. If you get caught up in all of those nonsensical things, you can't focus on the game. You're not part of the atmosphere. So we're already going. We're just going to the game as like 2 fans, and we don't get out much with the 3 little kids. So I got an invite to a suite next to Taylor's, and I turned it down because they only had 1 ticket. And I'm like, no, I'm going with my wife. We've had this plan. We got a babysitter. We're going to have a good time. And some of the guys were like, I can't believe you turned it down. Well, now I got to see if they have the ticket still. Maybe I can get it to Bill O'Reilly. So then if they pan to Taylor, if they do a wide enough pan, Bill will be standing there holding up Confronting the President, sticking it against the plexiglass window. I mean, I might have to do it and see if they still got the ticket.
And if Bill can't fly out here, I'll go for him and I'll hold up the book for him. What if he needs me?
Yes, that would be good. Take your shirt off, Mark, like Jason Kelsey at the Bills game.
And just jump out.
And just jump out with Confronting the Presidents in each hand, maybe the audiobook and then a hardcover copy in the other hand. Something like that. You got the CD and then they probably don't even do CDs anymore, whatever it is. I already got the hardcover, Mark. I'll give you my hardcover. We'll have Bill send out a couple of more, and you can jump out into the audience with Confronting the Presidents. How's that sound?
That sounds like a great plan.
Okay. Well, we got to figure it out. I'll pitch to Bill, see what he thinks of the guerrilla marketing. You approve of any of this, John, or are you still skeptical of the whole thing?
I like grassroots marketing. So,
I know. Hey, we do it here on KCMO.
That's what you got to do.
There's been no billboards in town for us in 6.5 years, and we've gotten this thing right up to the top of the ratings in Kansas City. So if we can do it, we can do it for Bill. Mm-hmm.